Hello, everybody. Welcome to Robert's Roulette, your favorite variety program with absolutely zero shame in deviating from any structure, pace, or sense. And boy, oh howdy, today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. How so? Fairly simple, really. We're actually going to be reading for once. An epiphany has been washed over me in the past few days that if you've seen any of our prior episodes, it's pretty evident that I don't really intend to have this, scripted in any way, shape, or form. I think I already talked about this in a prior episode as well, that I'm kind of looking, or at least aiming for this show to at least be a little bit more off the cuff, trying to polish up my English, both reading-wise and, talking-wise. But I guess to a certain degree, it's also important to make it at least as much entertaining for you as it is practically for me in terms of like a speaking or speeching kind of, vocal practice that I do to myself every week or so. Furthermore, why not try something a little bit different for a change? Won't that be fun? How will it be different? Fairly simple. I actually wrote down some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today, or in this case, me just sharing with you. Things on my mind, opinions on certain things. Jesus Christ. I am so upset with myself. I lost my little Better Call Saul souvenir card, a plastic iteration of what Jimmy McGill would give out in both Breaking Bad as well as his own TV show, Better Call Saul. But Better Call Saul, blah, 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 and the fictionalized, you get it. It's probably around here somewhere. Oh well, we've lost it to one, messiness as well as laziness, because it's probably just laying somewhere around here. But we are filming today, folks. We got more important things to figure out today. For instance, it's important to always commit to the choices you make. You can't half-ass anything, especially not anything. Especially the things that take up a whole 1/3 of your oh-so-precious time, with the 9-to-5, obligatory meal times, and disassociative fatigue leading to prolonged staring contests with the ceiling. Wondering and pondering, is this really the prime of my life? So my effort must be on full display to make every noun, adjective, verb, or slang be as crystal clear and engaging for you, my co-host. My prior attempts at this one-man show variety program have really done a number on my confidence in, but that's also the point. I mean, once you switch up the map and the audio track, it obviously influences your speech. What do I mean by that? As the stereotype goes, just like previously mentioned, born in Catholic Lord's favorite country of Mexico, due to our economic recession in 2002, my father, refusing defeat, glanced across his living room to little old me, crisscrossed on the floor, indulging myself in televised whimsy, Nesquik in hand, yet not alone. As the gush of hue emanating from the screen bounced across my father's accomplishments, which came in the form of furniture, framed memories scattered throughout our peripheral, leading to the woman he married, the only gal for him, grasping the 11-month-old skull of his pride and joy, hers as well, and of course being my brother, this dream had to flourish. Locked in, sight set forward to the land of the free, home of the brave, and thus, even though maintaining minimal mental grasp of my native language, with 10 whole years washing past like a fleeting gaze, my native language suddenly became my secondary one. And here we are, me needing to lay out, before filming, basic Robert lore written out with the literary skill of David Goyer writing himself out of a plot hole, if you know, you know. But we are here today, united as one, to articulate and communicate whatever the heck I've got to say. Furthermore, I'm aware. I am very aware to not treat anyone as a monolith. Me, Robert, clearly isn't in any general way, nay, any conceivable fashion, the pinnacle of the everyman archetype. Every night I flatten my mattress with my own weight, exhaling and cradling my legs, and trying to sleep. My needs and wants, the things I strive for, perhaps the mistakes I've made in the past that have led me to this moment, don't coincide with yours. We are merely alike in a superficial level perspective, at least maybe in a general standpoint. Maybe we have both of our eyes. Maybe we have all 4 of our primary appendages. Certainly 10 fingers, 10 toes, 3 nipples, merely twins biologically. But I refuse to revert to subjective assumption upon our mutual guilt of all our past mistakes. I had to learn to let go. Maybe you've had to learn that too. Maybe you had to learn to let in. I'm terrified of the ocean, while you relish in its waves each summer. And I hope for you to indulge me between these panels of LEDs separating us, a semblance of patience and empathy. I will harness this hobby of mine as an opportunity to tighten and sharpen my dialect, to not only provide you, at least for a short while, some escapism. Much like you and me, it won't be perfect. I will make mistakes. I won't say the right things, and most definitely won't always align with your views. Though I hope you can give me some. Yeah. But if I'm not here to share my thoughts on film, TV, news, music, my own life, and anything in between, then what the heck am I recording right now? My own escapism? From the mattress that carries my weight of the day? But all I ask for is empathy. Is this radiating omega levels of speech insecurity? Oh, absolutely! Is me acknowledging the insecurity also undermining the same insecurity itself? Oh, heck yes! Should I finally get to the subject of this week's episodes? Well, where to begin? Well, first, hydration. Someday I'm going to knock this shit off. Ice cold water. Now, we all have our vices, don't we? A wise friend once told me a mandatory component in adulthood is learning to moderate and manage yourself in stressful situations. How do you make God chuckle? You make a plan. And he'll never hold back. Or maybe he won't, if you're an atheist. You don't have control over anything sometimes, not even yourself. But one thing that binds us all together in our confusion, in the matter of choice, that which ties hope and perseverance to our will to keep moving. Yet no one is perfect. As if such a thing exists. As it ever will. But what does it simply mean to actually indulge in simple pleasure? Simple pleasure that grounds us back down to reality to make our sour moments ever more sour, but will make the gleeful moments. Let's try this again, actually. This is just going to be, random crap for the full episode. When I split this up in its own separate episode, it's going to be the right and perfectly, verbally explained one, like this one. We all have our vices, don't we? A wise friend once told me, a mandatory component in adulthood is learning to moderate and manage yourself in stressful situations. How do you make God chuckle? You make a plan. And he'll never hold back. Or maybe he will if you're an atheist. You don't have control over anything, really. Sometimes not even yourself. But one thing that binds us all together in our confusion is the matter of choice. Choice, that which ties hope and perseverance to our will to keep moving. Yet no one is perfect, as if such a thing exists. But what does is simple pleasure. Simple pleasure that grounds us back down to reality to make our sour moments ever more sour, but will make the gleeful moments all the more sweeter. Sugar? Nicotine? Maybe even exercise. To each their own. My vice is YouTube. It horrifies me to think how many movies I could have watched in place of all the literal days and nights that have been embellished in this godforsaken platform. Once home to expression, now home to monetary transaction of one's dignity. But there certainly is variety, of course. There always will be, and there always should be. Many individually maybe gravitate to certain things. Many individual mediums and art forms have relished in occultic praise. We've witnessed the brightest and most innovative artists of this generation have their inception being turning on a webcam mounted on their family computer. It's a thing. It has happened before. Some start off strong. Some needed time to find their own footing. Or maybe some actually hit the ground running. And some came hurtling from the hemisphere from day one, crashing into the platform, swinging their 9-inch cock in the air, proclaiming, "Robert, open wide, your personalized vice is finally here to stay." Now, before I begin sucking on Wozniak's cock for the next few minutes, I have to share a demonstrably important disclaimer to everybody watching, okay? Allow me to morph that disclaimer into a personal fact. I was exposed to the PS1 back in my childhood. I witnessed the global reckoning of the Wii. Had a one-night stand with Kinect on the 360 and had a wonderful casual relationship with the Nintendo DS. Although not a complete stranger to video games, it was never a medium that really resonated with me. And I'm actually being honest. Though memorable, my artistic thirst for emotional and mental stimuli was always dashed with film and TV. Maybe it's because I never played the right games at the age of 6 or 7. Could be. Perhaps I need more time to be indoctrinated. That could also be the case. Maybe I shouldn't have picked Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings from that garage sale instead of Xenoblade Chronicles. That also could be the fact. I will always have a respect for the video game industry, and I'm being truthful. A respect to the industry and, of course, to its universal legion of fans. It's just not a medium that I'm personally really into. And although not being in love with the art form, I consider myself a fine video game talker. I know surface level know-how on certain topics, studios, and franchises. I even serve out a couple of hot takes, if I do say so myself. A weird statement to really share with you. A weird statement, consider my apathy on the industry, but not surprising, if acknowledging it being a byproduct of countless sleepless hours of consumption of this little white guy with glasses. That's right, folks. Materialism has once more caressed my gaping desire to fill the void father left in the form of my very first U2's vinyl figure. The better Funko, if you ask me. And I haven't even opened mine yet. So, yeah, guys, today in this very same episode where I'm talking about my favorite YouTuber, we're actually going to be ending the video with me opening up my very first U2s of the boy himself. We're just going to leave this guy over here. And of course, he's going to be part of the set eventually. Months ago, they announced this little dude, and I'd have to be in a hospital bed coughing up blood whilst Dr. Simi counts off his $4 I gave him for telling me exactly what I already know, surely validating his 9 years of medical school for less than minimum wage. But months ago, while taking off my plastic gloves, at least his plastic gloves, as I pull up my pants and I notice a $50 bill fall to the ground as he catches the bus on his way back home. And of course, the lie being, it was a paper bill with 500 pesos, because this happened in Mexico. As a hardcore physical media collector and figurine admirer, which is me, I'm used to butt-fuckingly ridiculous prices to endure in my little hobby. This actually wasn't that bad. It actually wasn't really that all expensive. And yes, allow me to share with you what the Scott the Woz series means to me before I open my first Scott the Woz figure for you as a witness. What is a revolution but slaves and followers looking for a new master? Growing up in the USA in peak YouTube operation, my pupils widened amongst the discovery of our founders. Many to mention, and all worth mentioning. And of course, you got Smosh, Shane Dawson, Jenna Marbles, What the Buck, Dane Bodekeimer's work, Dax Flame, Cinemassacre, Doug Walker, so many to mention. And that's just my echo chamber talking. It was different. It was a different catalog for everybody back in the day. As so to this day, too. And you have the emergence of what I like to personally call the animated critic. The animated critic was the next evolution in criticism on media literacy, or on media itself. Gone was the stilted, eloquent way of speaking, the articles of text articulating the whys and hows of why Battlefield Earth is an abomination to humankind, and the medium of critical expression finally being normalized in a visual auditorial medium, one that not only anybody had access to, one that anyone could watch for free, but anyone also could be invited to be able to add upon that medium. YouTube. And its at the time inviting atmosphere cultivated a brand new generation of young imaginative viewers to speak their subjectivity. We were inundated of the unique media and culture that was forged from the early 2000s. For better and for worse, of course. Hot off the heels of the peak of cartoon absurdism, an army of young adults exposed to what many, including myself, consider to be the golden age of slapstick animation, presented in the form of Nicktoons, Toonami. You had even Disney Channel making a few bangers once in a while, and of course Cartoon Network in their prime. This cocktail of media influence mixed with what seemed to be freedom of digital expression created and redefined what media criticism could accomplish in this very platform. We got YouTube communities reaching out, feeding off each other. We got YouTube continuity within each singular channel. What do I mean by that? Movie reviewers began to have lore attached to them. It wasn't about just talking about a movie or a TV show or a video game. The mixture of different cultures and influences from a narrative perspective as well as an aesthetic perspective created the animated critic, which was, I'm not just going to be talking about movies and TVs. I'm actually going to develop my own kind of like slapstick format as a way to express to you why I don't like a certain movie. Water. The critics themselves, the way they were portrayed, leaned more into a caricature of a critic with radical emotions, radical emotional extremes, most leaning to how life was ruined by the quality of Freddy Got Fingered, almost implying how he's the cause, or that was the cause of his divorce. Geely, the movie. And thus, we jumped from cynical, we'll just call it, more traditional media literacy and media criticism. We jumped from Siskel and Ebert straight into nostalgia critic, and the animated critic was born. And well, so was its imitators. Degrading as the plural may seem, it doesn't absolve itself from the truth. Many came and went, yet few lived on. And it reached far beyond film itself, and seemed to be ripe for the video game community. Scott Wozniak made his formal debut, at least as his characterized version of himself, in his Scott the Woz series on January 7th of 2017, grew to gain a massive and passionate following for his online video game community that he has cultivated. Grew to gain a massive and passionate, I already read that, with episodes tackling various subject matters, but 98% of the time being video game related. What separated him, though, from the rest of the AVG and wannabes was what many others failed to accomplish: a voice. Going back to what I was saying, not to my disdain, but indifference towards video games, I remember myself stumbling upon the game packaging episode from Scott the Woz. An episode where Scott breaks down all major video game consoles' box art templates and cases that house the games themselves. And in hindsight, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I would stumble upon that in my own recommended software, or at least in this case, algorithm. Why is that? I think I was recommended that video because I am a die-hard physical media collector for film and television. And I would drench my senses in countless DVDs, unboxings, Blu-ray reviews on movies and shows that I enjoyed. And so, with a video titled Video Game Packaging, not a big shock to see YouTube assuming I'd probably be interested in what this boy with glasses had to say. And boy, did he have a lot to say, and boy, did I like it. The passion and talent Scott has when speaking on these topics is one that I haven't seen quite like him before. At least in this level. It's relentlessly humorous and sincere. I love Scott the Woz. Love him to pieces. His persona, the way his character presents himself, is through the sheer glee and enthusiasm to want to share with you what he feels about certain things, of course. The raw performance and the level of comedic timing and pitch-perfect delivery is unmatched and strikes the perfect chord with me. He's basically a live-action cartoon. His basically a live-action cartoon ripped straight out of the 90s cartoons would be used as like the perfect synonym to the kind of content he's creating. Basically, think Chowder, Ren and Stimpy, early SpongeBob, but just so happens to, really know a lot about video game consoles. Especially those that a lot of people don't really care about anymore. I can remember the actual moment Scott the Woz clicked for me. There was not a scene, not even a full joke. A fleeting moment. There was an episode of Scott the Woz that I watched after watching a couple of his own videos where I was thinking to myself, this guy's actually good. I like this guy. And I don't even care about video games. The moment I was hooked, I'll explain to you in a moment. So brief, you could literally miss it in a cough or a yawn. A 2-second long comment that altered my posture. I went from clicking on that damn thumbnail just to have something in the background while I crafted on my desk, slouched over, shoulders hanging, my eyes glued to the glue I was gluing on my DIY Kelpo cereal box I was making for a friend at the time, until my eyes gazed upon the screen watching over me. Out of sheer curiosity of what the heck I clicked on, and I was greeted to the following. It was the same video game packaging episode, and there's this specific moment where he mentions that we got to go back to where it all began, and he starts talking about an extremely old video game console called the Magnavox Odyssey, something like that. And the Magnavox Odyssey's video game cartridges were like this big, and they didn't even have really anything to distinguish each video game that it was representing. There wasn't like a paper sticker, glued on it, indicating Pong or Pac-Man or whatever. It was literally just numbers. From what I can assume, there was probably a manual included in the console somewhere indicating what corresponding numbers linked to various games, and that was how you were able to identify what cartridges were for what games. But he basically built up the reveal that the video game cartridges for the Magnavox Odyssey were just numbers, because it was like, let's go back to the Magnavox Odyssey, and it just cuts to a picture of the cartridge with the number 7 on it, and you can just hear Scott saying, I do like 7. And when I watched that initially, I completely forgot I was crafting. I was like, oh my God. That made me laugh so hard at the time. I just kept on watching the video and actually paying attention. I honestly believe that the video game packaging episode of Scott the Woz is the perfect introductory episode for that series and for that dude. Amazing. His humor is on full display, some of the best writing he's ever done. And with that, my crafting session had concluded, and the binging began. Scott the Woz is my favorite YouTuber, because not only do I find him to be, at least in this viewer's mind, the funniest channel on YouTube, and of course, within my biases and tastes, you gotta make sure you gotta remember that too, but he made me care about video games. I know about and can carry a conversation with the subject matter because Scott knows how to educate you. This guy makes you want to pay attention. The pauses and releases to keep a dynamic flow, and the precision in the script to not marinate too much on details accentuate the more interesting aspects of the topic, mixed with the comedic flourishes, of course. Think Steve Martin mixed with Angry Video Game Nerd, fused into one guy. Dude, now the whole, 7, I do like 7 joke is amazing, but that's not actually my favorite joke from Scott the Woz. My favorite joke of the entire Scott the Woz pantheon is the stupidest thing you'll ever hear all week. So get ready. So I believe it was the Sonic and Knuckles episode where he was talking about the video game in question, Sonic and Knuckles. And at the time, because technology was what it was at the time, they got Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and basically split it into 2 games because of production reasons. They were like, we're going to continue this game, because it was a bigger game comparative-wise to the first 2 Sonic games, where they were like, we don't really know how we can fit this game into a cartridge. Furthermore, we're just going to release it as 2 separate cartridges under 2 different names. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, but in reality, they're 2 halves of a larger game. And the way they could allow you to potentially link the 2 games together, we didn't have DLC at the time, we barely had internet. Actually, I don't even think we had internet the same way we do now. But when I think it was Sonic and Knuckles, when Sonic and Knuckles got released, it wasn't your conventional Sega Genesis-like cartridge. It actually had a cartridge port on top that you could flap open so you could connect the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 cartridge on top of each other and then connect the whole thing into your console so you can unite and connect both games. Basically, a pseudo-practical method of going around, adding content on top of a game by literally adding it on top. From one cartridge to another cartridge, and then sliding the whole thing into your console. Basically, the early stages of DLC. And Scott, humorously and sarcastically, as he always does, he kind of like pokes fun about how innovative it was at the time, Like the idea of a cartridge having a slot to put another cartridge on top, it was like, Jesus Christ, watch it, Einstein. Screw you, Isaac Newton. I don't know. This is why we write. But there was this moment. So Scott basically just grabbed the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge, opened it, and he was like, and now we have a cartridge port on top, and you might be asking, Scott, what are you going to do? And then he grabs the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 one, and he says, check it. And then connects them both, and it just cuts to him in a black abyss with a wooden sign next to him that says the future. And he's like, where am I? I love that joke so much. Dude, it's so stupid. I love it. And the best part about it, that's actually a really good joke to show somebody so they can really get a vibe for Scott the Woz, because it was hyperactively quick. It was like quick time events. It was like small, blink and you'll miss it moments. He didn't let you really think about how stupid it was. It was just like the semblance of an impression of the joke, enough for you to get the payoff of it, and then it just moves on to the next thing. Kind of like fleeting sporadic moments that makes them so effing funny. And of course, keeping with the animated critic angle, he's been so influential in his respective community of video game commentary channels, much like a trailblazer. You got crowds following in his lead. Dozens of channels, just like Scott the Woz. Even so shameless to actually copy the format of thumbnails that he uses in his videos. A lot of people do that, morphing their speech and dialect to match him. Far beyond even video games, there are other channels that are actually imitating his style, just talking about different subjects that aren't entirely video game related. Do you realize how insane that really is, man? Do you realize how many... Probably a lot comparative-wise, but comparative-wise as well, not many. Not many YouTubers are so effing influential and good at their job that a lot of people are actually imitating them so much that you can kind of consider it as its own subgenre of a subgenre on YouTube. Many people follow in his footsteps. You're looking at one of them right now. I've been so moved and inspired by him, more than I have been for a while on YouTube. Alan Becker might be the last time I saw someone just ravenously nail each and every single microscopic note in their canvases. That, and other projects I've done in the past on other channels, have been influenced by Scott's, aura. His essence is always there. He can be found in some of my older videos on other channels I've made on RCGA 1, RCGA 2. He can be found inside of me. Not literally, but sometimes when I'm talking to my friends who speak English, a reference or a joke might slip out of the Wozniak variety. He can be found on some of my other channels, not just in the algorithm, but now in my desk as well. Let's get this ready, guys. My first ever U2's collectible figurine, vinyl figure. Let me just say, by the way, I love the packaging. So it came in this. Oh, you can see, some of my lights and my camcorder there. So here it is. I love this so much. The packaging is so cute. I love. Okay, first off, hats off to U2's. I love that it comes in its own plastic, interior case, protective wise. I'm obviously just going to display this guy like this. I'm just going to open this, this one time. I don't really want this to get damaged. It wasn't that expensive, but Ah! All right, let's get into it. So let's try and make this somewhat satisfying, I hope. I don't want to bend it either. Somebody probably jumped. All right. The third and final flap. Awesome. Anyhow. All right. Pretty much the same. Okay. All right. Oh my God. Okay. Hold on a second. We're just going to leave him there. So we have this slip box. Dude, you can tell it's somewhat, it is kind of like a matte finish, as much as you can have a matte finish on cardboard. It's embossed, the lettering here, and it's also glossy, as well as, the little illustration of Scott himself. It is somewhat embossed, I imagine, by the glossy, texture that they printed on it. I love this. I love that you can actually see him. They didn't have to include that, They could have just, packaged it like this. Oh my God, I love it. Dude, I love the smell of cardboard when I'm opening things like this. Hey all, Scott here. Don't mind me. I've just mastered the art of becoming a collectible U2's figure. Plastic vinyl is the new flesh. Get with the times. That's so cute. And right now, we got his famous quote, hey all, Scott here. And this is basically, a miniaturized version of his main set on his show. It's his desk, and it's the guy himself, Scott the Woz. The box is really pretty much comparable to a Funko Pop box. Fairly, I'm very similar, basically the same kind of general packaging. It's same difference, Anyways, let's get him open up. I can't get over how good this smells. All right. So one of his most favorite, well, not even his favorite, one of the fan favorite quotes from Scott the Woz is, "This game blows," referring to Chibi Robo Ziplash, of course. Watch his stuff. Watch it, I promise. And whenever you open up the package, it says, "This game blows." So cool. Ugh. All right. We got his body protector. Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is so fucking cool. And we got his desk. This is so cool. Capitalism, folks. Here we are. We got Scott on his chair, living his life in his signature pose. Hey, all, Scott here. The detail is surprisingly detailed. It's actually really, really nice. Way better than a Funko Pop, man. Like, holy shit. So we got, the Internet and You VHS. We got the Sega Genesis, all Maddens, They even included, the little crocodile floaty box that he always has hovering in the background. If you know, the Pepto-Bismol is there, so is his phone. The tambourines. So cool. And yes, it's meant to be displayed kind of like this. Yeah, pretty much like this. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Easily one of my favorite figurines I have in my entire collection. The emotional weight this figurine has on me is unmatched comparative-wise with like 90% of the stuff that I have in my room. I love it. Couldn't love it more. Anyways, while I set everything up back inside of its package, I want to kind of like open up to you a little bit. So I am trying to, write these episodes out to whomever cares. I am open to criticism, of course. You can let me know maybe if my speech is okay, maybe if if any ideas to try and make this as entertaining as possible. All of which are, of course, open. I am trying to, improve my English, both talking and writing it and reading it out, because it's kind of like, I'm out of practice, kind of. I want to get better, basically, and I want to try and find, a healthy medium, a healthy balance with this channel, because just like a Funko, it has little plastic notches in it that allow them to, clap on into place, Please comment, comment if I'm doing a shit job, say it, okay? I'm open to that kind of stuff. I'd appreciate maybe some suggestions, criticism, in any way it might come in, as negative or abrasive as it can be, or as, thoughtful and meaningful and kind is always appreciated, of course. I'm trying to find a medium with this channel to where I have a lot of other personal projects, YouTube related, TikTok related and whatnot, that I don't have a lot of time or energy to really make all of it as professional or as detail oriented as I know I'm capable of doing with other projects that I've done. I kind of want this to be, more of like, a nonchalant kind of project. Just, turning and recording and just, just talking about it. The most, production that I would like now is maybe, have this stuff written out. Please feel free to let me know, your thoughts on the matter. If maybe it's a good idea, maybe if I should read a little more, if maybe my speech is probably fine, but the writing is kind of crap. Because, trying to figure stuff out here. I do appreciate, by the way, anybody who's somewhat interested in, my dialect journey, you might call it. And also, more importantly, I kind of just want people to, want to be somewhat interested in what my feelings, thoughts are, or opinions are on certain topics. I hope this was interesting, at least. For the remainder of the episode, we're just going to have this little guy right over here. Look at him. So beautiful. Anyways, next topic. Let's take a look here. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Talking about subjects. What should we talk about? Talk about. Yeah. It's pretty late. I actually forgot to show you this. This was the package that the U2s actually came in. Has the YouTube sticker on it. Pretty cool. Love this little cute logo. I love the little, the kind of like, eh. So that's fun. My address.
You'll never know.
Oh! Cardboard. Love it. Anyways. What I'd give to travel back in time. For personal gain, of course. I mean, what else is there to do? You know what I mean? To go back and experience a live Radiohead performance within the witness, maybe. I'm going to try that again. Sorry. What I'd give to go back in time. For personal gain, of course. I mean, what else is there for one to do? To go back and experience a Radiohead concert. Can you imagine? Witness the Dark Knight on opening day. To go back in time in 2017 and warn Shane Dawson to stay the fuck away from the beauty community. But in terms of comedy legends, everybody has their taste. Everybody has their own. Their own funny bone that can be tickled or obliterated in many different ways from many different people. There's really something to ponder over. A very personal question. A deeply interesting one to ask. Maybe as an icebreaker, a debate starter, or maybe it's just been a few years of experiences. Countless memories of love, fear, and pain shared with one another. Your biases becoming theirs, and their tastes becoming yours. You can't eat meat anymore, and she knows what Legos to get you. But love never truly lasts. It can evolve into something new and beautiful and fresh, or patiently wane and stall as fatigue wraps over what was once comfort and passion, now leaving you with an aching, hollow sense of no more surprises, no more questions to ask. Maybe until tonight. As you turn me off with your finger and you let the phone clatter on your countertop, the raspy texture of your comforting, grazing comforter as it leaches and glances across your skin as you lean into your loved one's ear to gently pull their hair back behind their ear. You feel their hairs across your own arm hair, brushing and combing your own, as your lips graze over their ear in an attempt to finally ask something, to know something else, anything else, just to be surprised for once, as it has been years after all. Hey, honey. Who's your favorite comedian? That answer I'm willing to share with you tonight, folks. Who's my favorite comedian? Who's Robert's favorite comedian? You probably already read the title and saw the thumbnail. I'll try to make it as engaging to you as I possibly can. I'll try and make you understand what I still quite don't. To hear him speak, what I'd give to hear him talk in front of me. Not by a couple of inches, but just seeing him on stage. That would have been something. To hear him, not from a speaker, to see him occupy my sight, to save some money and buy a ticket to his show, that would have been something else. George Carlin was certainly one of them. One of those who just had it, you know? We live in an ironically funny time for comedians, or activists of their respective sides masqueraded as figures of escapism. Those able and willing to navigate the treacherous tightrope of comedy. And how sensible and desensitized we've become is a minefield or a pot of gold, depending on the comedian's perspective of things. Maybe depending on how they're feeling. Maybe they're feeling on tackling our emotions. Or more appropriately, how much of our own common sense we forget to apply to the human language. George Carlin, I don't really see him as a comedian anymore. He was, God rest his soul, he kind of didn't do it for the sake of a laugh. And not that he told me personally, not that I assumed that from looking back at his work, but the material kind of speaks for itself. What earth-shattering could be used to describe monologues of his like 2005's Rights and Privileges, 1972, 7 words you can't say on television, and my personal favorite, 1996's Balance the Budget. He, amongst his legions of fans, known as comedy's first philosopher. A proponent of freedom of speech, questioner of conventions, and anarchist of bullshitting people into the status quo we let wash over us in exchange of the illusion of comfort and peace. Carlin walked so Chappelle could run. In addition to the written material, I loved Carlin's vocal performances in all of his shows for many decades. I loved his vocal nuances. A great voice, literally. Incredibly entertaining to listen to. So much so that actually, fun fact, folks, most of his fans probably already know this. In the original 1989 to 1997 run of the classic Thomas the Tank Engine TV series, George Carlin voiced the main cast as well as providing his divine vocal delivery as the narrator of Thomas and his various adventures on the island of Sodor, replacing Ringo Starr as the voice of a generation. For kids, at least. For us, whom grew up with the titular engine, were blessed with his vocals. Certainly, some of you might even recognize him as Cardinal Glick from Kevin Smith's Dogma, released in 1999. Additionally, the one and only cinematic aura farmer Rufus from 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, a time-traveling mentor for Bill and Ted, occasionally guiding them in their careless misadventures across the cosmos. Carlin also played Fillmore in Pixar's Cars, which, additionally, is actually pretty fucking funny because those who are familiar with George Carlin's work from, even in his early days, he kind of talked about how he was, it was the 70s, you know what I mean? Which is why, the hippie Volkswagen vehicle, I was waiting to burp for like the entire hour that this episode started, guys. I'm so sorry. If you're aware of how exposed Carlin was to substances in the 70s, the casting decision of George Carlin as Fillmore, the hippie Volkswagen vehicle from Cars, turns from a clever casting choice to a sublime one. To conclude my illiterate BJ session on the dead comedians who's been pretty much dead for 17 years now, why not conclude? I have to, try to rewrite these stupid scripts that I make because there's a lot of typos. I'm so sorry, folks. Why not conclude with the man's words, his own? Inside every cynical person, there is a disappointed idealist. Religion is like a pair of shoes. Find one that fits you, but don't make me wear your shoes. That's why they call it the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it. I like that one. We drink too much, smoke too much, spend too recklessly, and laugh too little. Drive too fast, get too angry, stay up too late, get up too tired, read too little, watch TV too much. We have multiplied our possessions, but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We've learned how to make a living, but not a life. We've added years to life, but not life to years. God bless him. Still to this day, my comfort, comedian to watch. I mean, it's either him or Bo Burnham, basically. And I do genuinely kind of like ask myself that every few weeks, If I could hypothetically go back in time, that's like a decision that I would fairly contemplate for like a long time. Is like, if you had like 3 chances to go back in time, that's, probably not one of the things that I would probably, use that silver bullet on, going back and seeing a Carlin concert performance. But honestly, I would think about it for at least a minute or so. What I'd give to be the comparatively few on planet Earth that had the right, nay, temporary privilege, to have witnessed him on stage. What I'd give, what I'd do to be there. And then my significant other just pushed me back to my side of the bed saying, I don't know, Matt Rife? Anyhow, folks, today we're going to conclude today's episode with another story. Does that sound entertaining to you? We're not going to need this little bad boy anymore, because this is going to come straight from the effing heart. Anyways, folks, what are we going to talk about today? I think this story is kind of interesting. Maybe you'll find it interesting, and if not, you know where to let me know. You know where to let me know. I can't speak today, sorry. Maybe I should try making these episodes caffeinated. It is kind of late, Anyhow, folks, what can we talk about? Life. Love. What is there to talk about? I'm not really sure. I have stories to tell, but not really in the headspace to really revisit them. At least not today. Interestingly enough, I have thought about, my relationship to the idea of relationships right now in my life. And I would like to be with somebody. I feel fairly productive and content with my life right now. There are a lot of personal projects, down the pipeline that I'm very excited to engorge myself in. Engorge. Maybe I should read a dictionary before I make one of these episodes, don't you think? And, there are some people in my life right now, from a personal friend group perspective, as well as some from a professional perspective, that I'm starting to generate, and this is probably not the best thing, but, I do tend to, pay a little bit more attention to certain people and, start gravitating, an interest or an endearment to certain people, which furthermore escalates, tiny crushes with a lot of people. And I'm reminded of how much, interestingly enough, George Carlin had a really interesting quote that he said with Conan O'Brien back in the day, where it was like, he loved people. He just hated people in groups, you know? Any neurodivergent can probably understand the significance of that phrase, you know? One-on-one, pitch perfect human experience. 10 out of 10 would play again. When they're starting to multiply, it's kind of like, maybe a dictatorship isn't the most terrible. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Kidding. And one of the best experiences that I've had in my life happened last year. And I was able to learn a lot more about myself, about what I can provide in a relationship. That has really made me think. That has made me, ponder and question stuff. And I'm not saying, I'm not pulling the whole, victim card of like, oh, I'm going to be alone all my life. No, man. It's more so, I know I have a lot of value. There are a lot of things that I'm confident about, things that I'm certain people can appreciate about me. I do feel like I have a lot to offer. It's just more so I've become a lot more weary or, more so picky of what kind of people I'm willing to share my life with in that, in a romantic sense, to where whenever I'm, developing these tiny crushes, I do tend to, and this is probably, not an earth-shattering fact or an interesting tabloid to, share with random strangers on the internet. I'm starting to assume that maybe that's, the proper and responsible thing to do before, you actually start, asking people out or getting to see them in that light at least. It's probably, the right thing to do, and I'm just, finally realizing it now, 23 years old. Regardless, it's happening. And you kind of start gravitating more towards certain people that fit the specific criteria of the emotional nuances that you need fulfilled, even before you even remotely think about maybe talking to them a little more. Maybe actually sitting right next to them, trying to engage in conversation, trying to, set up all the necessary tools before you work on the groundwork, And you start prioritizing, will this person be an interesting, companion? Will they be respectful? Will they be nice? Will they be caring? Will they be, insert whatever quality you're looking for in a relationship? That pretty much, overpowers any, superficial, basic attraction that might be inherently added. And what I mean by that is maybe, tastes, maybe, political or emotional beliefs in certain topics, maybe just general conversation engagement, it's more so, this person does seem kind of like, boring and, doesn't really excite me from an emotional standpoint, but maybe they do provide some other, more, it could be anything, material, sexual, emotional maturity, stuff that I kind of like am looking for more, not really so sexually, I mean, just so you know, I am a virgin currently, but I do identify myself as both demisexual as well as sapiosexual. I'll explain what that means in a moment. Demisexual is that, at least from my understanding of the terminology, I only have sexual desire for a person once a strong emotional connection and attachment has been developed. I don't really lead with my sexual foot whenever I'm dating or trying to get to know people, in a romantic sense at least. I'm repulsed of the idea of casual sex. It's kind of like, not really my thing. Sapiosexual, I am sexually and emotionally stimulated by people that at least seem more conventionally smart and intelligent. People with a high IQ, people with a good memory, interesting subject matters, know how to listen, have dominated social skills, have, increased maturity for their age, so on and so. Not the way that you're thinking, internet, not the way that you're thinking, but, people that, kind of like seem that they got everything together. And it's like, and obviously the insecurity talking, it's like, oh my God, whoa, I want you to hit me. What? Who said that? And that's the kind of thing that's the kind of stuff that I'm, more so, interested in, fulfilling for my next relationship. I do wish to, be in a serious, I don't imagine myself marrying, but I do kind of, I would love to have that one special person with me. The thing about it is that right now I'm in a point in my life that I'm very delicate with my time, and I'm more focused, from a professional standpoint. I'm prioritizing my own personal growth, development. I'm trying to improve my health. I'm trying to improve my physicality, for me at least, just so I can feel more confident with myself. And, my health is kind of waning in certain areas. So it's important, self-love and whatnot. It's important, take care of myself. So it's not so much a priority to get a girlfriend right now as much as, something that I don't really need, but my heart still kind of aches for. I love loving people. I love people. Really do. One-on-one conversations, that's amazing. I hate social events. I'll never understand, the whole emotional whiplash of that dilemma, man. It's like, I can't stand family functions. I can't stand parties, Of course, I've been to parties once in a while, more so, out of friend group obligations, And obviously, with that context, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for me to meet people. So, and I am pretty good at, forcing myself out of my own comfort zone for that sake, getting to know new people from a work environment, social environment, parties. I like to walk a lot in parks, and you'll always find people there. I'm pretty good with that. I feel like I have improved, but it's more so, I'm happy being alone, and in a really specific kind of like masochistic way. I'm a hopeless romantic, as you can probably kind of read from everything right now, that I'm not really, I don't want to rush into anything. I blame myself for not being at the place that I am now at a younger age, to where I'm a little more socially confident. I like myself a little more than I did, a few years ago. And for the first time, I can actually list off some, positive attributes about myself without really thinking about it. And I know what I'm capable of in a relationship. I'm extremely, annoyingly so, I am clingy. I am incredibly detail-oriented. I love making gifts, taking them out, listening to their interests, thinking about what they could, how can I make them happy, I'm pretty good with that. And it's always special and unique with everybody. I don't like the idea of, I don't like the idea of making a new crafty present idea for my next relationship that's going to be, a copy-paste architect of what I did for my ex-girlfriend, It's like, no, that kind of card that you made for her last year, that kind of gift, that's for, at the time, the environment at the time. It's associated to the love you felt for them in that moment. And it's not going to be the same with the next person. There are going to be different nuances, different romantic connection. It's going to be somebody different. They're going to have their own taste. And I'm going to have my very specific love language adapt and evolve to whomever that be. So it's I know already how I love. That's what I'm trying to say. That I'm not opposed to the idea of like waiting X amount of time to find love. If it means, dying a virgin, maybe not to that extreme, but I'm willing to wait. I just hope it's not too long, you know? So that's that. I don't know if anybody can relate. If only I drank alcohol, these kinds of conversations would hit hard, especially now. Like right now it's 1:13 a.m. in the morning right now. Like, Jesus. Oh, I kind of forgot I was recording something. So that's kind of fun. I kind of want to end this episode maybe talking about something a little more lighthearted. Perhaps, what could I talk about? What are some interesting topics that we can indulge in as our final segment of Robert's Roulette episode 3? I have genuinely no idea, folks. Anyhow, I'm trying to maybe route the next conversation off of and based on how interesting the thumbnail or the title of the video could be. Like, talking about my suicide story while I craft SpongeBob. Something, like, what the fuck is that episode about? I better click on it, I'm kind of tired, man. Maybe I should start making these episodes a little earlier in the day. Because it is kind of like emotionally waning to talk about heavy subjects when you're extremely tired, So, my stomach hurts. Microphone time. What else can we talk about, folks? Ba-dum bum bum ba-dum bum bum. Ba-dum ba-dum bum bum. Do 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 do. Ba-dum bum. I never needed you like I do right now. I need you. Vindicated, I am selfish, I am wrong. I am right, I swear I'm right. Swear I knew it all along, and I am fine. 'Cause you look like a movie. I'm tired, man. I'm gonna kill myself. God damn it. I gotta fix up my stupid fucking setup because this microphone is always going to cover my stupid fucking face. Anyways, yeah, guacamole and salt. Am I right? I don't know, man. This episode fucking sucked, didn't it? This is so effing bad. You know what? Let me just turn on my stupid phone to see what else we can find, man. Cracker Barrel inside of the cheese whisperer. Whatever happened to Rainy Rodriguez? Do you remember her? What was her name? Rainy Rodriguez? Something like that? Yes! Rainy Rodriguez. Let me think about here. Fiesta party quinceañera. Hold on, let me try and think. Can I find that stupid... I'm gonna fucking lose my mind right now. That's not funny. Let's put on the original, baby. I swear. YouTube ads are so... And this is kind of like an interesting, stepping off point in this kind of subject matter. Can you imagine even grasping the idea of like a solid, 1 to 2 minutes worth of advertisements that YouTube is shoving down our effing throats every single time we click on an episode? If you're not paying for the membership, of course. It's insane how much conformity can really penetrate us anally from a capitalist perspective. I remember complaining about, a 45 or 1 minute long unskippable ad on YouTube. Even back, during 2014 or 2015, man, it's insane how much YouTube has been incrementing, the advertisement, length ratios, and also applying, that whole BS about, having it being unskippable. And on top of that, they're just littered with ads the entirety of an episode. You're watching an episode of, whatever, Scott the Waz, Cinemassacre, whatever YouTuber you're watching, probably dated myself at Cinemassacre, but screw you. The golden era of YouTube was the early 2010s, and you can't dispute that. Shut up. But even going back to the old era of YouTube, they're just littered with ads, man. YouTube ads are cybernetic AIDS. We just let it happen. Just for a moment of pleasure. I'm just trying to get this Rainy Rodriguez episode. I'm never going to be paying for YouTube. Do you remember YouTube Red? Whatever that BS was, Some of the YouTube Red content was kind of interesting. I liked Game Lab from MatPat. I thought that was good. The Vsauce, Mindfield, whatever what was that called? Let me actually Google it right now. YouTube Red. Vsauce, Michael here. Mindfield. Something about mind. Something like that. The isolation episode, the pilot episode was so good, honestly. YouTube advertisement is getting out of control, man. It's insane that we as a society got rid of TV just to replace it with another one. Finally found the video that I wanted. Sing along, folks. If you know the lyrics, you know. Estás esa quinceañera, la siente tiempo, mundo y sonreír. The American accent, man, at the end always gets me. No shade to Rainy. I think she's incredibly talented. I loved her on Alice on what the fuck was that show called? Austin and Ally. I loved her song in Beverly Hills Chihuahua 3. Great song. But anyways, yeah, YouTube ads, man, what the hell is going on? By the way, anybody watching this out of context, this is a clip from my main show, Robert's Roulette, where it's basically just me blabbering about random BS for like an hour and a half. Ah! Anyways, the autism is autisming right now. I really want to go to bed. Why don't I just go out of bed? You know what? Screw it. I think we talked about enough BS for today, folks. Have a wonderful night. I feel like this episode is so This episode sucks, man. This episode was really bad. I think it started off pretty decent with, I try to, have some topics written out on my laptop right now. And I just kind of like deviated from it. There was a story that I was really interested in sharing with you guys, but I'm out of breath. I want to go to bed now, man. I don't know. But yeah, fun, I guess. Was this entertaining? Was it really? Is anybody watching? Probably nobody's watching. I can just do whatever I want right now. It's going to be an expression of anything that can't be contained in the confines of my own personal conscience. I can talk about anything. Talk about any political stance, and you would never know. Dun, 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 dun. Did you know, by the way? No, I'm just kidding. I don't care about politics. Who does? Only stupid people do. It's meaningless. It's meaningless. The stupid BS that they have shuffling around every 4 years. And yes, that was a George Carlin reference. I love George Carlin. Love him to death. Oh, man. From my experience working at a call center, you do get to see the absolute worst of America from every radical political pass point. And, a lot of sweet people can be found there, but also really a lot of stupid and dumb, ignorant people can, too. It's insane to me, how entitled a lot of people are in the world. Even outside of America, you can find entitlement anywhere, really. People are so stupid, man. People are really effing dumb. Honestly, at the rate of ignorance, laziness that we are, I'm kind of for. I was about to say some really stupid stuff, so thank God I caught myself there. Yeah. So what episodes are we having out of this? So we're having the Scott episode, the George Carlin one, the emotional, me opening up about meaningless crap, and also YouTube ads video. So hopefully some people are interested in those topics. And if not, feel free to bring on the hate comments. I don't give an F. So yeah, folks, you know what? We're just going to leave it at that. Thank you, genuinely. Promise to work on this even more to make it as engaging as I possibly can. Anyhow, have a wonderful night. Thank you for watching Robert's Roulette. And remember, love yourself. I don't fucking know.